Get it right from the start, okay? It's so much easier to handle your case if you can get it right from the very start. I always tell people the sooner I start working with people, the faster I can get you, the more quickly I can download these techniques and approaches into your brain, the higher chance of success you have. You know, I talked to a client earlier today, and she's somebody that I'd spoken to a year ago. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm in a mess. I should have started working with you a year ago. She's like, I don't know why in the world I waited. I thought I could handle it. Now I've made a mess of everything. And now I'm trying to recover. Okay. So let me just say, if you're that person and you've already made a mess of things and you're saying, well, Tammy, you told me to get it right from the start, but I haven't, I'm already in a mess. Okay. The sooner you start doing this, the better, right? I always say the earlier I get you, the better. That doesn't mean, oh, all hope is lost if you're far in there. It just takes longer to turn the tide. Okay. The farther out into the ocean that you have gone. Before we dive into this topic, let me just remind you, if you like this content and you find it helpful, don't forget to hit like on this video and also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And if you know other people going through this, don't forget to share this information with them. Send them a link to the video, the podcast, share it on social media, whatever you got to do. But man, people need help with these issues. Okay. How can we get it right the first time? I will tell you that, there's a multitude of techniques, okay, that I think are very, very important that you do right from the start. And obviously, I can't give you every last technique, but I think that there are 3 very common recurring ones that I see. And these are the ones that if I can start from the beginning, really, I think, turn the trajectory the most. And they're the things that when people have really screwed it up, again, the thing that starts to turn the tide the fastest. Let's just start with number 1, which is your emotions. Honestly, getting control of your emotions. And that looks different for everybody. I'm not going to say that there's one size fits all solution to controlling your emotions. I think some people get into therapy. Some people work with a coach like me. Some people meditate, exercise. Some people do all of the above at once because that's just how much help they need in controlling their emotions. But I think our emotions are the number one sabotaging thing when you're going through this type of divorce and or child custody process. Okay, so whether you were married or unmarried doesn't matter. When your kids are the thing that's on the line, you're a parent. If you love them, you're going to be emotional. That's just how this works. Now, the irony of that statement is that the court expects us not to be emotional. I shouldn't say the court expects us not to be emotional. The court expects us to be an adult and not to allow our emotions to interfere with what they term the best interest of the child, right? Like you got to put that stuff on a shelf, whatever your anger is towards your significant other, whatever they did, however they wronged you, whatever. You put a pin in it, put it over here, and you do what you need to do for your kids. Now, in a perfect world, yes, I agree. Absolutely. But we don't live in a perfect world. And honestly, as a human being, that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to do that when somebody has abused you or cheated on you or neglected you or devalued you or not appreciated you. It's really, really hard to come out of that relationship and not have negative emotions about it. But what you have to do is get to the point where you're coping with those emotions enough to where those negative emotions are not determining your behavior. Okay, so you can feel a way, but you can't allow that feeling to cause you to act a certain way. It's kind of like how we tell our children, like, you can be angry, but you can't hit your brother or sister, right? You can say you're upset with me, but you can't be disrespectful or curse at me or whatever. You can be angry, but you can't bite the other person at preschool, whatever the issue is, depending on the age of your child, whichever one of those resonates with you. It's that type of thing. That's what we're trying to teach our kids in that instance is like, look, I get that you have emotions. I get that you're upset, you're angry, whatever it is, but you still can't behave in these certain ways. That's what the court wants to see from us. They're like, it's not that I expect you to not have emotions about this process or the breakdown of your relationship or your family or whatever. but I do expect you to behave like an adult and not give vent to those emotions in the process of co-parenting with the other person. That is job number one above anything else. Number two thing that people do that cause them to get it wrong is in their communication. And this is an area where it's almost one of the first places I start working with people. And honestly, almost no one that I get is communicating perfectly. Okay. No one is communicating perfectly. We can always learn and do better. But I would say maybe a third of them are doing it well, and the vast majority of them are not. 70 to 75% of them are not doing their communication well. Okay, what does that look like? The thing about the communication you have to understand is it's probably going to be Exhibit A. And you don't know which piece of communication is going to be Exhibit A. And you don't know if it's going to be Exhibit A in a month, in 3 months, in a year. You don't know. So any of the communication that you're making could eventually become an exhibit for the other side. And you have to keep that in mind. If you can do that well, you build your credibility. If you do it poorly, you hurt your credibility. Now, one of the things I always say is these things aren't necessarily a 1-to-1 ratio. Is somebody communicating with you poorly going to cause them to lose their case? No. But if they're communicating poorly on a consistent basis and you're communicating well in the court's eyes, what the court deems well on a consistent basis, then that adds to your credibility. It adds to that overall picture of you, right? The last couple of videos I've talked about, knowing your judge, right? And then knowing yourself. All these little pieces stack up and eventually you hit a tipping point where you succeed in court because you're just stacking the blocks, right? Of all the different things. Let me do this right. Let me do that right. Let me add this to my repertoire. Let me just keep stacking it on so that eventually I'm doing so well that I'm, of course, going to get the outcome that I'm looking for. Okay. But you have to increase your odds of that by doing all these little extra things that you can do. And the communication becomes key. Don't put emotion into your communication, right? So that goes back to the first issue again. And people often will think that they aren't. So I've kind of refined what I usually say to people. And so the way I try to describe the communication is it needs to be purely logistical. Okay. It's not saying how you feel or how upset you are. It's not reminding that parent of how they're disobeying the court orders. It's not reminding that parent of how they never cooperate or how difficult they are. It's not any of those things. It's, hey, I've scheduled a therapy appointment for our child. It's going to be on Thursday at 5 p.m. during my parenting time. I'll make sure they get there. Just wanted to make you aware of the appointment. Boom, you're done. Not, oh, I finally got the child into the therapist, even though you've drug your heel on this for 2 months. And, I know you're still refusing to pay half, even though that's in violation of our court order, the appointment's on blah, 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 right? That's the type of stuff I see. You don't want to do any of that. You want to keep it strictly to the logistics of what's happening. That's all that matters. Now, what happens a lot with the communication is people feel the need to document their case as they're having the discussion with the other parent. Do not document your case in your communication with the other parent. Number one, it shows all your cards. Okay. Number two, it inflames them more because it's not like they're going to listen to anything you say. Number three, it's not any more evidence because you wrote it in a message to them or the app or whatever than if you just picked up this piece of paper and wrote it on that. It's the same difference. And if that particular communication ends up being submitted to the court, then when it's submitted, then you can write a statement to the court, a declaration, an affidavit, whatever it's called in your jurisdiction. You can write a statement to the court and say, hey, here's what transpired on that thing. And here's what I was thinking. And that way you're not putting that into the app. You're not trying to use the app or the messaging or whatever for documentation. I talk about documentation ad nauseum, but it really is a big thing, but you keep it separate. It's separate from your communication with your parent, your other parent. Again, I don't want them to know what you're tracking. I don't want to show the cards. I don't want to inflame the communication and make them difficult to deal with. I don't want the court to think I'm documenting my case through there. I don't want to be emotional with the other person. Okay, you go over to your little documentation list and that's where you let all your emotions out. If you just did those two things to keep your emotions out of it and do your communication in the way that I'm talking about and keep your documentation, I guess those three things, you will be 75% ahead of where everybody else is. Okay. But you have to be able to follow through on those things. You've got to be able to do them well. You can't do well on your communication for 2 weeks and then give vent to your anger on there because you just undid all the positive stuff that you did for the last 2 weeks. It's like, oh, here's the blow up. Okay. So this is where the support, the coaching, all those things come in to help you stay on track with those behaviors and make sure you're not losing it. Look, I've got people that are texting me every day just about it. Hey, is this message okay? How do I send this? What do I do? How do I word this? How do I do that? And Chat GPT is a great asset if you are looking at communication. But I will tell you that it's got its limitations. Okay. And I see that come through in clients, and it's only as good as what you're telling it to do. So if you're the type of person that you use harsher language or you use softer language and you're telling it to reflect a certain style, whatever, that may come through. Or if you write it in the first instance, you say, hey, improve this for me. It may improve it and may make it not quite as hostile, but if you're coming across really strong, it's still going to come across pretty strong, right? It's not necessarily going to know the nuance of softening that approach unless you actually tell it to do that, So learning to advise it very specifically in certain styles of writing and different things like that. And so, again, you got to think, I painstaking down to every word a lot of times when I'm working on communication. And that's after 15 years plus of doing this, I still painstaking over every word a lot of times when I'm trying to help a client think of how to approach a certain situation with a high conflict person. This is something not to do. What not to do? I'm going to give you one not to do in addition to the two to-dos, okay? And what not to do is don't give as good as you get, okay? Don't be one of those people that goes, well, they do it to me, I'm going to do it to them. No. Why? It's like, well, they're getting away with it. Why can't I get away with it? Here's the thing. They may be getting away with it in the short term, okay? But again, we're trying to build an overall picture of credibility. And when you're engaging in that, it does not make you look good. I had a client that said, I'm going to take their tactic because it seems to be working for them. And what I said to the client is, it's not that that's working for them. It's that they're taking that approach. You're reacting to it. You're being emotional. You're communicating poorly. You're doing all these things that is feeding into that. You're taking the bait. And so it's making you look crazier than them because you're taking it. Their approach, the narcissist approach, does not work. It cuts off the blood supply to that if you can control your side of the street, okay? So you've got to get control of those emotions. You've got to communicate well and do not do what they do, okay? If they try to not tell you about appointments, don't do that. Don't try to not tell them about appointments. If they cancel something at the last minute, don't try to avoid telling them just so they won't cancel it. Okay. Let those things happen. And I know those things are a pain in the butt. I know they cause a lot of chaos in the interim, especially when it's appointments and things for the children. But you have to let those things play out because for the court, they want to see patterns of behavior. I need to be able to show that this stuff is happening over and over and over and over and over. I mean, honestly, for 6+ months at least. Okay, 6 to 12 most of the time I tell people. You have to be able to show that pattern of behavior. Having 1 or 2 incidences isn't going to be enough to turn the tide for you. It's not going to be enough to get you off on, strong footing with some great leverage. You've got to just let the offenses of the other person stack up. Okay, so don't do what they're doing. To use my late husband's words, wear your halo. Okay, be above reproach. We always want to take the high road. Always, 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 because that's the road that leads to success in the long run. Okay. It might be tempting to take the low road and to sink to their level and to try to beat them at their own game, but that doesn't work because morally, you're not willing to sink to the level they're willing to sink to. I promise you. And so you can't sink low enough to beat them at that game. But you can take the high road, which does take a little longer to beat them at the game, but it has a way higher success rate. I hope that's helpful. If you'd like to learn more about these types of strategies and techniques to help you succeed in your case, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's information on that page on my group coaching programs for moms and for dads. And there's also information on my premium VIP one-on-one coaching services. If you have something more complicated going on, like, protective orders, restraining orders, child custody evals, attorney for the children, all that type of stuff, usually those people need a little higher level of support. Or maybe you're just at the very beginning and you're like, I'm totally lost and I don't understand anything that's happening and I need somebody to help me understand. Then those VIP services may be for you. All right. Thanks for joining me. I will see you guys next time.
Turn us to thousands.